So I just got back from an incredible holiday in Scotland, and I've made myself a cup of tea, and I wanted to tell you all about the books that I bought while I was there, my favourite book that I read when I was there, and I've got some posts as well. The first book that I bought here is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and I bought this from a lovely little shop called Typewronger. Highly recommend that one, and the clerk even made me a little origami dragon, which I absolutely love. Right next door to Typewronger is apparently Scotland's oldest bookshop called Macnaughton's, and from there I got my first esoteric weird book, which is Mystery Cats of the World. I was about to leave the shop, and then as I was leaving, I saw a book on Freemasons right by the door, and of course I went to that like a magnet, and Laura just rolled her eyes, and the the guy who's running the shop said, "Oh, if you're interested in that, you missed this shelf. You should come and have a look." So, of course, I went to that shelf, and that's where I found this book here, Mystery Cats of the World. I mean, I'm obsessed with the Beast of Bodmin Moor and basically all big, ghost cats. So that was very cool. But undoubtedly, the coolest bookshop I visited in Edinburgh was Armchair Books, and this is the epitome of the Rabbit Warren bookshop. Like, you can't walk anywhere without feeling like a stack of books are going to fall on you, which I love. And I knew I was going to love this place because as soon as I walked through the door, right in front of me was a whole shelf of Robin Hobb, and right above it below it was a whole shelf of Stephen King. And I found a lovely first print of Look to Windward by Ian M. Banks, who is currently the author I'm most interested in at the moment, having just read The Player of Games, which was extraordinary. Really recommend that book. I'm getting into the Culture series. This is the next one I'm going to try. Very much looking forward to it. I shouldn't admit this, but I did go into Waterstones, and I found this beautiful American special edition of Dune in there. Do I like Dune that much? I've got mixed opinions about Dune, but I know how significant it is for sci-fi, and I loved the film. And to have this book, this beautiful book with blue sprayed edges, I had to do it. Moving further north, at Fort William, I went to Highland Books, and here I bought Ursula Le Guin's little collection of essays called Space Crone. As you're going to hear later, I love Le Guin's non-fiction writing as much as her fiction writing, and I think that she is such an amazing thinker, and that really comes across in her fiction. But then the non-fiction essays that go with it really give you that insight into what's going on inside her mind when she writes fiction. So I can't wait to dive into that. I also have Words on My Matter up there. Also going to dive into that soon. The last few books were picked up in various charity shops around the Lake District. I got another Ian M. Banks, Use of Weapons, paperback. I got The City We Became, N.K. Jemisin. This was just hanging out on a bargain shelf. And lastly, a brand new copy of Holly by Stephen King. Literally untouched. Couldn't say no. How about we dive into some post? This one I had on pre-order. I'm very excited to see. It was in a lot of the bookshops as well, actually, because it had just come out, and they had a special version. Mine isn't special, but it is still special in a different way. Terry Pratchett, A Stroke of the Pen, The Lost Stories. I was hearing about... Oh, I can't tell. I was hearing about some of his lost stories when reading his biography earlier this year. There's part of you which feels like, is it worth digging up stuff which was him not at his best? But to get an insight into how he got to the place he was at when he first wrote Discworld, and to kind of see his plot, his development, I'm really excited to read this. And I got this from bookshop.org, which is a fantastic place to go if you want to support independence but still buy online. This one's fairly heavy. Oh yeah. Okay, this is mashed, but that is an American first edition of It by Stephen King. Oh my gosh, it really is mashed though. Incredible. It's not in good condition, but is what it signifies, and I only paid a tenner for it, so that's pretty amazing. I have complicated feelings about It, which maybe I can go into in a future video. If you've read it, you know what my complicated feelings about it are. Laura's going to resent me for this one. This is an American copy of The Name of the Wind, just paperback. Laura and I also have complicated opinions about Patrick Rothfuss. I love Name of the Wind. I think that Name of the Wind is a fantastic book. I think Wise Man's Fear is a massive piece of garbage. But so it also kind of reflects back onto the Name of the Wind, in that you kind of feel like, oh man, I mean, is this where when I was reading Wise Man's Fear, I was like, is this where Patrick Rothfuss is going all the time?
You know the Rothfuss fans are going to come for you in the comment section.
The Rothfuss fans come for me. You know, I'm okay. I'm okay with you attacking me. It's okay. I still love Name of the Wind. I'm happy to be trolled for my...
Don't say these things because they'll do it.
Please don't troll me. But, you know, your opinion on Wise Man's Fear is valid, as are my opinions. All art is subjective. Maybe a future video on that too. It's got, like, tissue paper and everything. They've also put some coffee in there. It's The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Samantha Shannon, famous recently for Day of Fallen Knights and Priory of the Orange Tree. This was one of her first fantasy books. I'm not actually sure. I'm pretty sure it was released before Priory of the Orange Tree. This is the third print. Got it very cheap. Very pleased with it. Thank you very much. That's seller. So there's all the books I bought. As for books I read, I finally finished Wuthering Heights. That was, a wonderful book. It took me too long to read, mainly because it's a very depressing read, but very much worth it. I really kind of got stuck into it towards the end. I was really hoping for some kind of like Pistols at Dawn kind of thing between Heathcliff and what's his name? What's the guy's name? The guy who is the narrator. Anyway, I was hoping for some kind of Pistols at Dawn thing. It didn't happen, but I was happy enough with it. The book that...
It's me, it's Kathy, I've come home,
That was more Kate Nash than Kate Bush. This has been a chaotic video so far, but let's get to the key point as the cat wanders into frame. The best book that I read while I was away was Exhalation by Ted Chiang, and I just loved this book. For those who don't know Ted Chiang, he is the master of short stories, and particularly sci-fi short stories and a lot of philosophical short stories, the ones that kind of really delve into what it means to be human, as much of a cliche as that is. In these short stories, he carries the torch for philosophical sci-fi. Recently, I've been reading The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin, and in my copy, in the foreword, Ursula Le Guin talks about the sci-fi being kind of the genre of what ifs. You know, you're like the book or the story poses a question, and the example she gives is like, what if a mad scientist made a human being and then brought them to life? But these what if questions that Ted Chiang asks are mostly about technology and what would happen if we had a technology available that fundamentally altered the way which we interact with each other and the way in which our lives work. There are 9 stories in here, and the first one that I was introduced to was The Merchant and the Alchemist's Gate, which I actually listened to a while ago on an episode of LeVar Burton Reads. Highly recommend that. The LeVar Burton Reads is an amazing podcast, really worth your time. The Merchant and the Alchemist's Gate is my favourite short story ever. And I'd never read it in context within one of Ted Chiang's short story collections. I know it was written before this book was compiled. It's been knocking around for a little bit. That story is a time travel story, and it's so difficult to do time travel in a novel, unique way. But the way he does it is by essentially creating a device that allows someone to move forward or backward 20 years in time, depending on how they walk through this portal. And that evolves into a series of short stories within the short story, told in the style of 1001 Nights, and each one of these stories has a moral lesson to go with it. There is also this branching narrative, which kind of is a fable in itself, and the way it ties up together at the end is masterful. As you're heading inexorably towards the end, you try to think, well, how is this going to tie together? And then suddenly it does, and you're left reeling. It's an extraordinary short story, and I really recommend it. But don't just pick this up for that short story. You need to read the rest of these as well. My other favourite from this series was actually the last one. So it's bookended by a fantastic one and also another fantastic one. And the last one is called Anxiety is the Dizziness of Freedom. And this one was entirely new to me when I read it. The technology this time is these devices called prisms. And they're about the size of a briefcase, and they are widely available, And the idea is that when you press a button or when you interact with this device, it essentially creates a quantum mutation which splits time into two ways. So the person on one timeline sees a blue LED, and on the other timeline they see a red LED, and then they go about their lives in separate ways. And the use of this device is to essentially kind of see how your life would pan out if you made a different decision. It's all about kind of decision making, or even how, just see, talk to yourself almost, as all of these devices have this quantum hard drive which can be read in the same way in both timelines. What Ted Chiang does so well is not just inventing these interesting technologies, but then also coming up with really interesting use cases for those technologies where they would be useful or where they would potentially ruin someone's life. I'm not going to spoil any more of the story for you. I'm just going to really encourage that you go and read it because it doesn't take too long. Merchant of the Alchemist Gate, you can go listen to a 40-minute podcast and enjoy that one. But the last story, Anxiety is the Dizziness of Freedom, you're going to have to seek out hopefully by buying this short story collection. Really highly recommend it. Do check it out. And now I'm going to read his previous short story collection, which I haven't got around to yet. Can't wait to get into that and see what else he's done. So there you go. That's my recommendation. The best book I read while I was away was Ted Chiang's Exhalation.